Hi YouTubers, welcome to a once-off video on eschatology or the end times. And today we're thinking about chronology, that is the timing of Christ's return. And I want to look today at the parable of the fig tree. And you'll find that in at least two passages, Matthew 24, which is the end time chapter in the book of Matthew, where Jesus tells his disciples about the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. And so from verses 4 to 28 he lists all kinds of signs, such as wars, rumors of wars, deception by false prophets, persecution of believers, the gospel preached over the entire Roman world, Jerusalem surrounded by the enemies, time of famine and distress and disease and sword and abomination in the temple. The Romans entered the temple. And then captivity, where the Jews were taken to all nations, if you like, from there as captives. Then from verse 29 and after that, Jesus speaks about his second coming. And there are not too many signs of that. It's a bit unexpected. It's like lightning just goes bang. A flash followed by the bang of the thunder, I guess. But there's very little warning about that. But one little hint, I believe, he gives us is this parable of the fig tree. And the fig tree, vines and olive trees are symbols of Israel in the Old Testament. And vines and olive trees are carried across as symbols of believers in the New Testament. But the fig tree seems to be more of a national Israel symbol. So we're going to just read a little bit from verse 29 through to the end of the parable, and we're going to consider which generation, what does that mean? What generation will survive and be there at the second coming, and what does that mean? So let's have a look. Matthew 24 from verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the heavens and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And here comes the parable. Now learn the lesson from the fig tree. We'll now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branches has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see all these things, know that it is near at the doors. Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. All right. So, the question is always asked, what is a generation? And if you read Psalm 90 verses 10, the psalmist, I think it's Moses in this case, says that some people are given 70 years, but perhaps 80 years if you're doing well. So a generation is either 70 or 80 years long. So let's have a look at that then. So the fig tree being a symbol of Israel, that only blossomed once the Gentiles had finished trampling Israel. So since AD70, the Jews have been exiled pretty much from their own country. However, in 1948, the Jewish state was once again established. So Jesus said, this generation will by no means pass away after the fig tree's budded until all this takes place, that is, even the coming of the Son of Man. So, option one, if Israel became a nation in 1948 and you add the 70 years, you come to 2018. Well, we know that wasn't the case. But what if, like Moses said, God allows the full term of 80 years? Well, 1948 plus 80, that comes to 2028. Now that's only 4 years away. So the question is, was Jesus speaking to the generation of the apostles? He said, this generation will not die before the AD70 event occurred? Or was he saying that this generation would not pass away? This generation, when Israel became a nation, that generation will not pass away until the second coming. Well, I'm inclined to go with the second option because from verse 29 onwards, Jesus is speaking about his second coming. And the parable actually follows the talk about the second coming. So in its context, it actually fits this fulfillment and not that fulfillment. So if we've established the generation is 70 to 80 years long, then once Israel became a nation, you add 70 or perhaps even 80 years, you get to 2028. So by 2028, Jesus must come, because that's the length of the full generation. Now, a very important principle from the Old Testament is that of 2 or 3 witnesses. So Deuteronomy 19:15 and also 2 Corinthians 13:21 speak of every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. So this parable on its own, it doesn't make a strong enough case to say that Jesus will come in 2028 or by 2028. However, when you start adding 2 or 3 witnesses, then it becomes quite a powerful argument. So my advice to you, bear that in mind, and also see good biblical chronology. And there's a channel called, well, on YouTube there's a video called Messiah 2028, a rebuttal of Messiah 2030. But there's actually a 6000year.com. He has a website, the guy who does that. And he shows that 2028 is 6,000 years exactly after the creation of Adam. And it's worth looking at that. Now, if that is indeed the case, and I'm busy looking at it myself, and it looks pretty good to me. And this also ties in with that. Then you've got a powerful argument for the coming of Christ in 2028. So whether this is the case or there's been a mistake made, make sure you're ready for the coming of Christ, and make sure you're ready by 2028. But make sure you're ready now, because you don't know you'll make it till 2028. Life is fairly uncertain. So make right with Jesus, and God bless you as you walk with him. Bye-bye.